What is going on, everyone? I hope you are all having a fantastic day. So, as some of you may know, the very first video on this channel is about how I made an extra $2,000 to $3,000 per month by flipping laptops as a teenager. And while the information in that video is pretty solid, let's just say that I'm not the most comfortable on camera. What's going on, everybody? I hope you are all having a fantastic day. So today, let's run through my entire process on exactly how I was able to make several $1,000s per month by flipping electronics as a teenager. All right, let's jump right into it. Okay, so first of all, we all know that there are a million different ways to make money online or from other side hustles, and it can be really difficult to pick something and stick with it before getting distracted and moving on to something else. But whether you're a teenager looking to make some extra money, or you're just a grown adult who has some free time and wants something fun to do, I can tell you right now that flipping electronics is a legitimate way to start making some pretty serious money pretty quickly without any huge upfront investment or anything like that. On average, I made between $2,000 and $3,000 per month in profit, but there were months where I put a lot more time and effort into this, where I made $5,000 or more in profit by flipping laptops as a student. Okay, so that's great, but how does this actually work, and how can you replicate the exact same thing? Well, thankfully, it's not too complicated, and the first step is to just find a good deal on an electronic device. Now, personally, I spent most of my time on laptops because I found that there was more profit in those, but I actually started by flipping a really cheap iPhone. So regardless of what device you decide to start with, the main thing to keep in mind here is that you make your money when you purchase the item. And what I mean by this is when you get a good deal on an item, then selling it at market value is pretty easy. But if you overpay initially, then selling it above market value in order to make the same amount of profit is going to be next to impossible. So in order to make a consistent profit and have a quick turnaround on your items, you have to buy at a great price. Now, there are a million different places to look for a good deal, and you'll definitely want to try out a few different platforms to find what works best for you. Personally, I started off by looking at places like Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, and even Craigslist. And all three of those are places that you can find a really great deal. But there's two main issues that led me to move away from those websites. First of all, you have to physically meet up with the person, which isn't always that big of a deal if they are local, but in some cases you might have to drive an hour or more in order to pick up that item for a good deal. And even if you are getting that for a lower price, you then are burning gas, spending a lot of time, not to mention you're putting a lot of wear and tear on your vehicle. And at the end of the day, it's really just not worth it. So if you can find a good deal locally and you're comfortable meeting up with someone in person, then by all means, go for it. But especially if you're looking to do this in a high volume as a teenager, it's oftentimes not worth that little bit of extra profit if it means that you have to spend a lot of time driving really far away and meeting someone in person. And the other big disadvantage is even if you know a lot about the device that you're buying, there's really no recourse, meaning if something ends up being wrong with that item, there's no way for you to return it to the seller in most cases. Of course, you're able to look over the item and make sure that it doesn't look broken, but at most you'll have a few minutes before the person selling it will want to get their cash and go home. So that's why I started to move away from those in-person websites and started looking at places like eBay and Mercari to find those deals. Now, obviously, buying from somewhere like eBay or Mercari means that you are going to be paying fees and shipping and that sort of thing. So finding a great deal is not quite as easy. However, you're drawing from a much larger pool of listings, meaning there's a lot more opportunities to find that perfect deal for you. Not to mention the fact that you're able to do all of this without leaving your house, which is always a nice benefit in my opinion. Alright, so now that you've purchased your item for a great price, whether that be a phone, a laptop, some other electronic, or something completely different in a whole nother category, now you have to sell it for more than what you paid. And again, you can list it on places like OfferUp and Marketplace and that sort of thing, but my personal favorites are Swappa and Mercari. Now, you can also sell on a place like eBay, but what I actually found is that the fees are typically a little bit higher, although they did recently change their fees with the eBay platform, so that might be something that's worth checking out. But with a platform like Swappa, instead of paying a percentage fee of the entire sale, it's just a flat fee across the board. And usually this breaks down to a much lower percentage of the entire sale. So instead of a percentage of that whole sale. It might just be a $5 fee between $50 and $100, a $10 fee between $100 and $300, and so on from there. Now, you also have to pay that pesky 3% PayPal fee, but there's really no avoiding that on most platforms. Okay, so regardless of what platform you decide to sell your item on, and you absolutely can and should list it on multiple sites, the most important thing is creating a professional and clean listing that makes you appear as a real, legitimate business and not someone who is selling electronics out of their house. And by far, the most important factor when it comes to creating a professional listing is photos. You need good photos. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go spend a ton of money on a brand new camera, because most of you probably have a fantastic camera on your smartphone. But what I would recommend you invest in is what's called a photo light box. And you can actually get this for really cheap on Amazon for like $100. And I will tell you firsthand that as soon as I started using a photo light box to take pictures of the items, the pace at which I was able to sell was much, much shorter, and the price that I was getting for each item was way higher. Not only does the photo box give you consistent lighting that makes the item look really good, but it also gives you that flat white background that looks really, really professional and gives the buyer a lot of confidence when buying from you. I'll leave a link in the description below to the photo box that I use, but this is the easiest way to level up your listings immediately. Now, always remember that the more photos, the better, and you also want to create a really detailed and professional description of the item itself. And to save time, you can just create a template and then copy and paste that for each item and just change the specs and the condition of the item itself. And that makes it really easy if you're selling something like laptops, because for the most part, they're pretty much the same, and there might just be a few differences in specs and condition. And my other tip to you is don't try to hide anything with the photos or the description, because 9 times out of 10, if you try to hide a huge scratch or a chip in the screen or anything like that, the buyer is either going to return the item, which is a huge headache that you definitely want to avoid at all cost, or they will write you a bad review, which is not good when future buyers come to look at your page and see that you have a negative review for trying to hide damage to an item. So if an item has a scratch or something like that, just take a clear photo of it and put it in the description, because yeah, you might get a little bit less money for that item, but most people don't really care if they're buying used because they understand that it's not going to look like a brand new item. Plus, they'll probably really appreciate the fact that you are being honest and upfront about that issue. Okay, so now that you understand how all of this works, let's talk about how much money you can actually make. This is obviously going to vary drastically depending on how many items you're able to sell and what you are selling, but it's really not that difficult to start making some substantial money by flipping electronics. As a base example, let's say you're able to sell 5 computers per month and each of them makes you $200 in profit. Well, that means that you're making $1,000 per month in profit by selling just 5 computers, which means that you're probably only putting in 5 hours for the entire month, if that. So if you can sell 20 computers per month at the same $200 profit, then that's $4,000 in total profit for the month. And as you can see, the sky is really the limit, and as many computers as you're able to sell is how much profit you're able to bring in. And also remember that these are just averages, and I had a ton of items and examples that made way more than $200 in profit per item. But seriously, if you're looking to make some money on the side without a huge investment of money or time, then this is by far one of the best options to start making some money really quickly. And my last tip to you is just to be patient and understand that there is going to be a learning curve to this sort of thing, and you are going to get better at it as time goes on. You also want to be prepared for feedback and returns, because especially if you're selling a high volume of items, you're bound to get a few angry customers or bad reviews, and that's just part of the process, and you will learn from that experience, and that's completely normal. And lastly, don't try to chase that high price tag just for the sake of squeezing out a few extra dollars in profit, because really, if you want to make some big money by doing this, then you need to have a high volume of items, meaning you're selling a lot of items. So squeezing an extra $50 of profit out of a laptop is just not going to be worth it if you could sell it for a slightly lower price and then move on to the next item and make more profit. So if you were flipping electronics or some other item, then I would love to hear about that down in the comment section below. Or if you're doing an entirely different side hustle, I would love to hear about that as well. As always, if you did get value out of this content and you want to help support me, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who you think would get value out of this content as well. And as always, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.